Hi again, everybody. My name is Greg Anderson, and this is the Good Timekeeping Show with Greg Anderson. And today I want to show you this Wi-Fi connected clock that will set itself to the exact correct time using Wi-Fi instead of using, that radio controlled stuff that I usually have on my other clocks and watches, where in my case it's WWVB out of Fort Collins, Colorado. And my watches or my clocks will receive a time and data broadcast from WWVB and then set themselves. This one bypasses that and goes to the local Wi-Fi network to set itself. So that makes it work in places where, number one, a station like WWVB just is not available. You're just too far away from it. Like in the Southern Hemisphere, like if you're in Australia or New Zealand or South America, all those places. Or if you're in a location where radio interference is possible because maybe there's a lot of industrial equipment running, big motors, motion sensors. Maybe you're in a building that's made of metal and that's going to affect radio reception. So in those situations, Wi-Fi usually is pretty reliable and you can use this and still get your perfectly accurate atomic time clock without, just with Wi-Fi. So anyway, it comes in a box like this, okay? Made in China, a brand that I've never heard of, and not much to it here. It does say on the box here that you can get it in white, red, or blue. And the only color I saw available on Amazon was this with the blue digits. So took it out of the box, and here's what I saw. Now, by default, it's going to show you a 24-hour time, and it's going to have the temperature flashing over here, alternating between the date and the temperature in Celsius. But I just have to press a couple of buttons on the back. Oh, not that one, though. Let's see. This button to change it to Fahrenheit, and this other button back here to change it to a 12-hour mode. And I apologize. It looks a little bit strange. I found that blue LED just sort of shows up strangely on a lot of these video cameras that we're using these days. So this camera back here has kind of a hard time. The blue sort of has a little bit of a blooming effect, and this even had like a little strobing effect that the camera was seeing, although my eyes cannot see that strobing effect. So I made just a couple adjustments to the camera to try and make this show up better. But I will guarantee that this looks better in real life than it does here on the video. It looks a little bit dull. Whereas, these digits over here on the video seem to be a little more consistent and brighter than these over here. I can assure you that in real life, in person, it's more consistent all the way across. So it looks pretty good. All right, so let's just take a look at the back of it. I'll show you what it has. First of all, I think I've kind of got regular size hands and stuff. So, I want to assure you that this is the size here. Okay. It's a nice large clock, has a built-in stand back here. So you can just set it up that way, without a problem if you want to leave it on a desktop, or it has these two holes here to hang it up on the back if you want to hang this on the wall. I guess the only trouble with hanging it on the wall is maybe you'd have this cord hanging down the wall. So if you can find a way to mount this and, there's a little recessed area behind it to put the cord and the AC adapter, I guess you can try that. Or maybe you just find a slick way to route this cord down the wall. Right in here, I'll show you, is where the cord plugs in. It's just, a little DC connector. So there's an AC adapter, goes to this little connector here, plugs into there, and then you can kind of route the cable there. Over here on this side, it looks like there's a space to put a AAA battery as a backup, for when the power is disconnected, save all your settings. But as I look at that, there's no metal contact for that. So maybe this case used to be, on a different design clock or, but anyway, this right here where it looks like you need to put in a backup battery, you can't put one there. It wouldn't do anything. So all I'm going to do is put this cover on here and close that up. Okay. It does have some sort of backup memory inside of it, because as I unplug it for a while, I haven't unplugged it for very long, but let's say I unplugged it for 10 minutes and plug it back in. It's going to come back to the same settings I had it set to. So somehow it's remembering my basic settings. And as you can see, there's a line of buttons here to do some of your settings as well. So snooze, set, This button here, obviously it's a plus button to do some of the settings, and that's a minus button. Also, just a simple tap of this button will just change from the 12-hour to 24-hour display. This will change from Celsius to Fahrenheit display, and then a couple other buttons there to help you set it up. And then down here, there's a switch for the brightness. So the digits on the front will have a low and a high mode. It's kind of subtle, but you can tell that it's there. And then you can set it to automatically adjust. And I wasn't sure what that meant. Is there some sort of schedule that this will go from low to high at certain times? Or is there some sort of a light sensor? And I think I found the answer up here. This looks like some sort of a light sensor. And I tested this by just turning on the lights in the bathroom and turning them off again just to see what would happen. And indeed, I think this is your light sensor. And as the ambient light in the room changes, then the digits on the front of this clock may get a little bit brighter or a little bit dimmer. And I think that would work best. Obviously, if this were sitting on a tabletop or a desktop, maybe not work as well if it's right hanging up against a wall and there's not a lot of room for this to assess the ambient light. But so far so good. I think I'll leave it in automatic mode most of the time. It seems to be all right. So anyway, those are the basic things you're going to see on this. Now let's take it around to the front and we'll show you how to set this thing. But I should also note here, as it's alternating between showing the date and the temperature right here on the front, it's showing that the temperature is 87 degrees right here, and that's not accurate. I mean, it's a little bit warm here at my tabletop, but it's not 87 degrees. So I'm not sure that I really trust this, maybe because I've been handling this for a couple minutes and, it's taken some heat off of my hands. But I think this might be generating a little bit of heat just by being turned on. So I find that maybe in the mornings, when it's cool in the house, this does tend to look correct, but a lot of times it seems to run a little bit higher than I think the actual temperature is. So now there's a way that I could just make it not alternate. If I thought the thermometer here wasn't reliable at all, then I could make it stop scrolling and just stay on date all the time. I could also make it stop scrolling and stay on temperature all the time. But those are my options here on the display. The instruction book that comes with it, it's okay. I would want it to answer just a few more questions than it does answer, but you can follow along and it's not too bad. So what it's telling me is when you first set it up, first of all, you have to tell it what Wi-Fi network you want it to connect to. And if there's a password, you have to tell it the password as well. So the way you do that is when you power it up, you hold down two buttons together that are marked alarm set and timer. And so those buttons are the bottom two over here. So I'm going to remove power, and as I power it back on, I'm going to hold those two buttons down together. So let's try that. All right, so I'm holding the buttons as I apply power. Okay, I heard the beep. All right. Now, I need to go into my tablet, my phone, even a computer, and I need to connect to a Wi-Fi network that is currently being generated by this device. So let's see how that's done real quick. Here's my iPad, and I'm going to go look up the available Wi-Fi networks, and one of them is going to be right here, HQX2128. So if I go to that and connect to that network, what I'm actually doing is connecting this iPad directly to this device. Now I'm going to go from here into my web browser, and I'm going to manually type in a local address here, and it's going to just be 192.168.88.1 and go to that. So as I connect to that, it's giving me a very simple web page here. One says web config. So I'm going to tap on that one. And here it's going to have me choose the Wi-Fi network that I want this to connect to for the long term. So here it's going to tell me the Wi-Fi networks that it sees in my house. And I'm going to select one of them. And I'm going to type in the password that it needs to enter in order for it to connect to that network. So here I go. And also it's going to ask me the time zone where I am. So in this case, it's going to be UTC -7. So you can go, all the way to -12, all the way up to +12. I see here that there aren't any options for some of those time zones where it's maybe, 7.5 hours different from UTC. So I'm not sure exactly what you would do in those locations, but I'm going to say my time zone is UTC -7. And then I'll click Submit. And when I do that, it tells me success. And now I'm done using the iPad. What happens now is this device, as you see, just took a few seconds to log into my local Wi-Fi network and to set itself to the right time. Now it's in 24-hour mode, so I can there's a button back here that I can press, as you saw, to switch it to 12-hour mode. And basically I'm done at this point. I can hang this up and let it go. It knows the correct time and date for now, and it's showing me the the temperature right now. I'm pretty well done, except there are some other functions on here you might be interested in. For example, if I press and hold the button on the back that's marked plus, which is this one, hold that for just a couple seconds, it will allow me to choose. Maybe I don't want it to alternate between month and date. So now I can tap the plus button again, or the minus button. Here it's telling me it's just going to stay on month and date, or here it's going to stay just on temperature all the time, or in this case it's going to alternate between the date and the temperature every 5 seconds or so. So what if I just leave it on month and date, and then I press the set button one more time to save that setting. Okay, there I just since I wasn't looking at the set button, I wasn't sure what I was doing. But okay, and now it's set. Now it's just going to stay here, and it's not going to alternate those settings right there. Now, another thing I could do is set an alarm. There is an alarm on here. So if I press the alarm set button, it will take me into the alarm mode. If I press the set button, I can turn that on or off. Press the plus and minus buttons to turn that on and off. Or if I press the set button again, now I can change that time to some other time. Press the set, okay. And there, 1E refers to, do I want this to work every day? Or if I go 2E, then that is only Monday through Friday. Or 3E, that would refer to only on the weekend. So I have those options with the alarm that I just set. So anyway, there you go. So it has an alarm, and it's kind of a loud alarm. There's no way to really adjust the volume of that alarm, so you may or may not like that. If you have to reach all the way around the back to press the snooze or to turn the alarm off, it might not be the best alarm clock you can have, but if you put it right next to your bed, nice and large, nice and loud, I don't think you're going to sleep through this one. Anyway, the snooze, by the way, is about 5 minutes, or it is 5 minutes, and then it'll go again when you press snooze. But if you want to turn off the alarm, press any of the other buttons except for snooze to turn it off. And I'm going to go ahead and demonstrate what the alarm sounds like when the alarm goes off. All right, and that went for about 90 seconds. I cut some out there, but yeah, that's how long it'll go. If you don't press any buttons to turn it off or to snooze it, it will go 90 seconds, making that sound that's, it'll wake you up. I think it's plenty loud. Now, there also happens to be a count up and a countdown timer on this one. Again, a little bit more useful if you have this on a desktop than if you have it hanging on a wall. But in order to get into the timers, I would tap the button marked timer. And then I can, let me see here, I can use the set button to increase the hours, the one that's marked plus to increase the minutes, and the one that's marked minus to increase the seconds. And then I just press the snooze button back here, which is the one on top, to start that timer. And now here's my countdown timer. And that's going to go and then make a loud noise when it's done. Now, while the timer is running, I could press the timer button, and apparently, even though it's gone back to the normal time display, that timer is still running in the background. So, you've got that option if you want that timer running, but, you don't want to just look at the timer while it's running. Anyway, while it's running, if I tap that top button again to stop it, I have paused the timer here, and let's see if I can. It says that if I hold the plus and minus buttons together, then that will reset the timer for me. Okay, don't hold them down, but just tap them in order to do that. Also, when it's at 0 like this, if I haven't set it to some duration, then I can press the start button and it will start counting up from 0. And it says that the time period for this is up to 29 hours, 59 minutes, and 59 seconds. And even though I don't have the microphone pointed right at the clock, I'm going to let it count down to 0 and just let you hear a little bit of what does this sound like when it gets to the end of the timer. And apparently that will go for about 90 seconds at the end of the countdown. Another feature here, if I press and hold the alarm set button, then it has a chime feature. And if I press the plus or minus button, I can choose a different chime. All right, and the third one is just the shorter chime there. So I either get the Ave Maria tune plus a little ding-dong for each hour, or I get the Westminster Abbey plus that chime, or I just get the chime, ding-dong, for however many hours it is. If it's 4 o'clock, it'll, play that pair of notes 4 times. If it's 12 o'clock, it'll do 12 times. So, and it's kind of loud. There is then a function here where, let me get back into that. Okay, so if I set that, and then down here the number 1 is blinking, my options are, when it's number 1 blinking, that it's not actually going to chime. I'm not going to get that. Or I can set to option 2, which is an hourly chime every hour, 24 hours a day. Or option 3 is it will chime starting at 6 o'clock in the morning, and 9 p.m. will be the last chime. So it'll be silent, after 9 p.m. and before 6 a.m., but then it'll start chiming again. So as long as you're okay having those sounds start up as early as 6 a.m., it's kind of nice to have that chime. It's plenty loud. Might be better in like a factory or an office or something than maybe in your bedroom, especially if it's a day that you'd rather sleep in. So those are the options. That's just everything that it does. I like this, and I want to show you one more time how quickly. See, now that I've got everything set here, I've set it to the Wi-Fi network. If I remove power and restart it, let's just, okay, turned off the power for now. I'm just going to wait just a few seconds. When I plug it back into power, you'll see that the first thing it does is, light up every segment of LED, beep a couple of times, and then boom, just that quickly, it's back to showing me the local time. So I don't know if that's being held by some sort of internal, like a button cell battery that held that time, or what. But as you can see, it did not hold the 12-hour and 24-hour mode that I set to. It did not hold the Fahrenheit thing that I set to, and it's back to scrolling again. Let's just double check and see if any of the other stuff, like the let's see if the alarm has been changed. Yeah, the alarm went back to default, so it didn't really save any settings except the Wi-Fi network so that it could show the right time again. But generally speaking, I tend to want to have 12-hour mode and Fahrenheit. So each time we lose power, a little power blip, I would have to go in here and push the buttons to get it back to the way I want it. Also, let's see, if I tap this button up here, this would be for I could change languages. So let's just scroll through and see which languages we have available. we have, okay. I'm not even sure what all of those languages are, but I guess that would just, the only thing it would really affect would be the day of the week abbreviation. So I could change to another language. Also, let's see here, I could have daylight saving time on or off. So there are manual settings here. You know, I could manually set the date, and I could even manually set the time on this if I really needed to. But since it is connected right up there to my Wi-Fi, you know, I don't really need to do the manual settings there. And I'm not sure if I did set it manually. I guess I need to tell you. So here I am kind of fiddling around with manually setting things, but as soon as I get back to normal, it must be continually checking itself against my Wi-Fi connection, because even when I try to set it to the wrong time, it only takes a moment for the thing to say, hey, you can't kid me. I know what time it's supposed to be. So let's try this one more time. I'm going to set these all wrong, wrong, and then go back to normal. And let's see how long it takes for this to figure out that, hey, that's not right. See, and it just goes right back to the right thing again. Okay. Now, the only thing I guess that I don't know how well this is really built, how long it's going to really last. It's made by some, Chinese company I've never heard of before. But once you get it set up the way you want it, I think it'll be just fine. And the only other complaint I guess I would have on this one at this point is when I have a clock that is, an atomic time display showing me the correct time right down to the second, I like to have a seconds display, and nowhere in here can I see the seconds. I've got hours and minutes for the current time, but not seconds. So I guess in a lot of situations, that's not that important to people. If you're in a factory, do you really need to count down to your break? You need 4:29 and you need to know it's 59 seconds or whatever it is, so you can count down to the break, or you just watch it change from minute to minute. I don't know. So yeah, I've got just a few radio controlled clocks that show me atomic time without showing me the seconds. And usually when I have a clock like that, I say, I just wish it would show me the seconds. So anyway, but it is accurate. It sets itself so quickly, as you can see. And the only thing is, just that whenever I remove power, it defaults back to 24-hour time in Celsius, which are not my preferred time display, but maybe for you it is. This comes with a simple little power supply here. I just plug into my 110 volt AC power, and that's all I need there. This thing it gets a little bit warm, but really not that bad. I tested it with my kilowatt device, and it showed me that this uses about 5.5 watts of electricity in constant usage. So by my calculation, that's less than, the way we pay for electricity around here, if you're buying it from the power company, that's less than 50 cents a month to run this thing, so it's not going to be a huge drain on your budget to plug it in. But I just thought, just to be thorough, I'd let you know. Just under 6 watts of continuous power coming off of it when you plug this in. And one more thing, if it's a little bit difficult for you to figure out how to, how to hang this, because it has two little mounting holes there, it does come with a little template that you can put on the wall and mark the holes and put in a couple of pegs there to hang it up. Or a nice suggestion that one of my viewers had on another video where there was another clock with 2 hanging holes like this. I took a piece of string and I took a little bead that my kids play with, and they make little bead things with them. And I just kind of jam this up here in the hole, okay? And I ran the string over so it's on both sides here, okay? And I just kind of, got that situated in there nice and tight. However, and as you can see, it slips a little bit. So what I'm going to do here, I'll just take a little piece of tape on each side here. And this is just kind of, poor man's process. I'm going to put a piece of tape across there to keep that little bead from slipping out when you don't want it to. Okay. And that's all it takes, really. And that's going to stay in there nicely. And then So I can just hang it. If I want to put just one little brad up or something and hang it from this string, I can do that. That'll work until I come up with some other idea. So you can do that if you don't want to, have to make two holes in the wall to put two little nails up and try and make sure that they're perfectly level between the two of them. Just do something like this. And yeah, that's about all I can think of. Enjoy this if you want one. It's kind of fun to have a Wi-Fi clock, and you can put this in places where radio-controlled clocks just don't cut it, and still get your perfectly accurate time setting. And like I said, the owner's manual doesn't go into huge detail about how this thing works, but it appears to me that it is constantly monitoring your Wi-Fi time servers to make sure that it is set correctly. The only mystery I would have to solve now is, what does this do when it's time to change for daylight saving time? So that's coming up in a few weeks. I'll see what happens. Does this change right exactly at 2 a.m., like the official time you're supposed to change, or is it some other time? I'll see. If there's anything remarkable, I'll make another video and show you and tell you what that does. Otherwise, since it's running off Wi-Fi, I can't really fiddle with this much and, simulate some sort of a time change for daylight saving time. I just have to wait for it to happen. In the meantime, I'm sure I'll come up with other things to do right here on the Good Timekeeping Show.